Hello, this is Ryder Keeping It Real, and we are finishing up First Maccabees. We've been reading First Maccabees for a while now, and it's part of the Apocrypha. This is the Apocrypha, Authorized King James Version. I don't read from that version. It's harder to read and understand that version. So I read from the Good News Bible version, and I hope that this mic is on. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I hope it is. But the Good News Bible version, it has the Apocrypha in it, and I like it because it has pictures. It has a picture in it that I think we're going to color today. And we're on chapter 13. First Maccabees has 16 chapters. I'm going to try to get through all 16 today because I just have to finish it. And I can tell you that it's really easy to watch people do videos on YouTube. It's a lot harder to make them. And I wish I could read these verses ahead of time so I don't stumble over the words, but I'm not going to do that. So bear with me, read along with me, pull out your own Bibles, but just trying to see what's going on. What is the reason that these books were taken out of the Bible? What is in them? What is there to hide? And what we're finding with First Maccabees is that these people were true to the Most High. They called on the Most High. They blew the shofar. They won battles with the help of the Most High every single time. And every time that they didn't call on the Most High, they didn't win the battle. Once they won the battle, they got all the loot and whatever there was, and then they went to the next battle. So that's what it's been pretty much. So this is chapter 13, First Maccabees. Simon leads the Jews. Simon learned that Trypho had assembled a large army and that he had plans to invade Judah and devastate it. He realized that this news had brought panic and fear to the people, so he went to Jerusalem, called the people together, and tried to encourage them by saying, "You know how much my father's family, my brothers, and I have done for the sake of the law of Moses and the temple. You also know that the wars we have fought and the troubles we have had, all my brothers have been killed fighting for our law, our temple, and our nation, and I am the only one left. But never let it be said that I tried to save my own life in a time of danger. I do not consider myself better than my brothers, not in the least. It is true that in their hatred all the Gentile nations have gathered together to destroy us, but I will fight to defend my nation, the temple, and your loved ones." So really, the thing I get from that is we are a nation within a nation. But we are a nation and we're God's nation. And with God on your side, there's nothing we can't do as a nation. So these words immediately revived the morale of the people. And they answer with a loud shout, "You are now our leader in place of your brothers, Judas and Jonathan. Fight our wars and we will do whatever you ask." So Simon gathered together all the soldiers and hurried to complete the walls of Jerusalem and to strengthen all of its defenses. He sent Jonathan, son of Absalom, to Joppa with a large army. This Jonathan drove out the people who were there and occupied the town. Trypho left Ptolemais with a large army to invade Judea, taking Simon's brother Jonathan along with him as a prisoner. So Trypho, he left Ptolemais with a large army to invade Judah, taking Simon's brother Jonathan along with him as a prisoner. So Jonathan is now a prisoner. I think they think Jonathan's dead. So Simon set up a camp at Adea at the edge of the plain. When Trypho learned that Simon had succeeded his brother Jonathan and that he was ready to meet him in battle, he sent this message to him: "I am holding your brother Jonathan under arrest, because while he was in office he did not pay his debts to the royal treasury. However, I will release him if you will pay me 6,000 pounds of silver and send 2 of his sons as hostages to guarantee that he will not revolt against us when he is released." So a bribe. Although Simon knew that they were deceiving him, he sent for the money and the 2 sons because he did not want to arouse the hostility of the Jews. He was afraid that they might later say that Jonathan was put to death because Simon would not send the money and the boys. So he did as Trypho had demanded. But Trypho broke his promise and did not release Jonathan. That's a repeat. Then Trypho made his move to invade the land and destroy it, circling around by the road to Adar. But Simon and his army moved along, facing him wherever he went. I mean, I can see this as a movie. I wish I could read this as a play. I can see this as a play or a movie. As I'm reading it, I keep forgetting what I'm reading, but it's fascinating when I read it. So verse 21, the enemy soldiers in the fort in Jerusalem kept sending messengers to Trypho, urging him to come to them quickly by way of the desert and to send them supplies. Trypho got all his cavalry ready for the invasion, but that night there was a heavy snowstorm, and he was not able to move up into the hills. That would be the Most High working that out with using nature. So he withdrew and went into Gilead. When he was near Bascama, these places is like, it'd be great for someone to look up these places and to see where they are now. He had Jonathan put to death. Oh my God. And his body buried there. He did kill Jonathan. Then Trypho turned and went back to his own country. So verses 28 to 29 in Greek are unclear. That's because these things have been translated 100 times. So Simon had some men bring the body of his brother Jonathan to Modin to be buried in the town of their ancestors. Everyone in Israel was in deep sorrow at the loss of Jonathan, and they mourned for him a long time. Over the tomb of his father and his brothers, Simon built a high monument that could be seen from a great distance. It was covered front and back with polished stone. He constructed 7 pyramids side by side for his father, his mother, and his 4 brothers. Pyramids. For the pyramids, he created a setting of tall columns on which they were carvings. Some of these carvings were of suits of armor, and some were of ships. It was a monument to their victories, which travelers from overseas could visit. The tomb which he built in Modin is still there today. So I wonder if it's still there. And if, someone's taking pictures of it, I'll have to look that up. That's interesting. The tomb which he built in Modin is still there today. Meanwhile, Trypho assassinated the young king, Antiochus VI, and took over his kingdom in Syria. He brought that country great troubles. Simon rebuilt the fortress of Judea with high towers, strong walls, and barred gates. Then he placed stores of supplies there. He sent ambassadors to King Demetrius II to ask for tax relief for the land, since Trypho was doing nothing but robbing them. King Demetrius sent the following letter in reply. King Demetrius, to the high priest Simon, the friend of kings, to the Jewish nation. It probably didn't say Jewish. It probably says a Jew nation, the nation of Jews. And to their leaders, greetings. I have received the gold crown and the gold palm branch which you sent. I am prepared to make a peace treaty with you and to instruct our tax officials to grant you exemptions. So right off the bat, you have to think this is not real. He's fooling them again. Our previous agreements with you are confirmed, and the fortress which you have built are to remain yours. I grant you pardon for treaty violations committed up to the present date, and to release you from payment of special taxes still due, and any other taxes that have been collected up to this time in Jerusalem. All Jews who are qualified may enroll in the royal service. Let us have peace. So in the year 170, the yoke of the Gentile oppressors was removed from the Jews. People began to date their documents and contracts with these words: in the first year of Simon the Great, high priest, commander, and leader of the Jews. Okay. At that time, Simon laid siege to Gezer and surrounded it with his army. He built a movable siege platform, brought up to the town wall, attacked one of the towers, and captured it. The men who had been on the siege platform then moved rapidly into the town, and they created great confusion. The men of the town, their wives and their children, tore their clothes in distress and climbed up to the top of the town wall. They pleaded loudly with Simon for a truce. Have mercy. This is Simon and his men entering the fort. Have mercy on us, they begged. Don't punish us as we deserve. So Simon came to terms with them and ended the fighting. He made the people leave the town. Then he purified the house in which there had been idols. When that was done, he and his men entered the town, singing hymns and songs of praise. That's them entering the town, and that's them blowing the shofar, singing hymns and songs of praise. He eliminated everything that would make the town ritually unclean and settled it with men who would obey every command contained in the law of Moses. He strengthened the defenses of the town and built himself a palace there. The men in the fort in Jerusalem were now prevented from leaving to buy or sell anything. They were suffering from severe hunger, and many of them had died of starvation. Finally, they appeared to Simon for a truce. He agreed, removed them from the fort, and purified it. On the 23rd day of the second month in the year 171, there was a great celebration in the city because this terrible threat to the security of Israel had come to an end. Simon and his men entered the fort singing hymns and praises and thanksgiving while carrying palm branches and playing harps, cymbals, and lyres. Okay. Simon issued a decree that that day would be a joyous celebration every year. He strengthened the defenses of the temple hill on the side facing the fort, and he and his men made their headquarters there. Simon's son John was now a grown man, so Simon made him commander of the whole army, and John set up his headquarters in Gezer. Chapter 14. The Praise of Simon. In the year 172, King Demetrius II gathered his army and went to Media to seek additional help for his war against Trypho. When King Arsaces, the sixth of Persia and Media, heard that Demetrius had entered his territory, he sent one of his commanders with his troops to capture Demetrius alive. They attacked and defeated the army of Demetrius, took him captive, and brought him back to King Arsaces and threw him in prison. The land of Judea was at peace as long as Simon lived. During his entire reign, he used his position of power and influence to do what was good for his people, and they were always pleased with him as their ruler. So during his entire reign, he used his position of power and influence to do what was good for his people, and they were always pleased with him as their ruler. He added to his reputation when he captured the port of Joppa and opened up the route to the Greek islands. He not only enlarged the territory of his nation and gained control of the whole country, but he brought back many prisoners of war and captured Gezer, Bethzar, and the fort of Jerusalem. He purified the fort, and there was no one to oppose him. The Jews farmed their land in peace. The land produced its crops, and the trees bore fruit. The young men showed off their splendid military uniforms, while the old men sat around the city squares and talked about the great things that had happened. Simon supplied the cities with food and provided them with weapons of defense. His fame spread everywhere. He brought peace to the country, and Israel's joy knew no bounds. It's wonderful. Everyone lived in peace among his own grapevines and fig trees, and no one made them afraid. In those days, all the enemy kings had been defeated, and there was no one left in the land to fight the Jews. Wow! Simon provided help for all the poor among his people, and guided by the law of Moses, he eliminated all wicked and lawless men. He provided the temple with splendid furnishings and added a large number of utensils for use in worship. I know why I'm reading this now. It's because this is going to happen again, where it's going to be peace. It's going to be peace in the land. And it's going to take God to make that happen, and for God to use his people, his nation, build up his nation to do that. Verse 16. When the news that Jonathan had died reached Rome and Sparta, it brought great sorrow. But when the Spartans heard that Simon had succeeded his brother as high priest, and that he was in control of the country and its towns. They engraved on bronze tablets a renewal of the treaty of friendship which they had made with the brothers of Judas and Jonathan, and sent the tablets to him. They were read to the assembly in Jerusalem. What follows is a copy of the letter sent to the Spartans. The people of Sparta and their rulers to Simon the high priest, so the leaders and the priests of the Jews, and to all of our Jewish brothers, greetings. The delegation that you sent to our people has told us how respectful and renowned you are. Their visit has been a source of joy for us, and the report of their visit has been written down in our public records as follows. Numius, son of Antiochus, and Antipas, son of Jason, honored representative of the Jews, appeared before us to renew their treaty of friendship. The assembly of the people was pleased to receive these men and all honors, and to place a copy of their report to the public archives, so that the people of Sparta may have it on record. A copy of this document has been made for the high priest Simon. Later, Simon sent Numius to Rome with a gift of a large gold shield weighing half a ton to confirm the Jews' alliance with the Romans. When the people of Israel heard about all of this, they asked themselves, how can we express our thanks to Simon and his sons? His brothers, and his father's whole family have been towers of strength for our nation. They have fought off our enemies. They have fought off our enemies and set the nation free. Wow, they have come a long way. So they recorded this on bronze tablets and set them on the columns of Mount Zion. The inscription read as follows: On the 18th day of the month of Elul in the year 172, that is in the 3rd year of Simon the high priest, at the great assembly of priests, people, officials, and national leaders, and following facts were made known to us. Often when wars broke out in the country, Simon, son of Matthias, a priest of the Jehoram family, and his brothers risked their lives in protecting our nation, our temple, and our law against our enemies. They have brought great glory to our nation. Jonathan unified our people and became the high priest before he died. The enemies of the Jews plotted to invade the land and defile the temple. Then Simon assumed command and fought for his country. He spent a large amount of his own money to provide weapons and wages for his nation's armed forces. He fortified the towns of Judea, and especially Bethsar of the border, where enemy weapons had previously been stored. He stationed a detachment of soldiers there. He fortified the seaports of Joppa and the city of Gezer on the border of Ashdod, which was previously occupied by enemy soldiers. He settled Jews there and provided the town with everything that the people needed. When the people saw Simon's patriotism and how he wanted to bring glory to his nation, they made him the leader and high priest. They did this because of all that he had accomplished through his loyalty, and because he had brought about justice and had tried in every way to bring glory to his nation. Under his leadership, the Gentiles were driven out of the land. Enemy soldiers were forced out of the area north of the temple, where they had built the fort, from which the soldiers used to go out and to defile the holy temple. Simon settled Jews in the fort, strengthened it for the security of the country and the city of Jerusalem, and increased the height of the city walls. As a result, King Demetrius confirmed him as high priest, gave him the title of friend of the king, and treated him with great honor. Demetrius did this because he had heard that the Romans were calling the Jews their friends, allies, and brothers, and that they had received Simon's delegation with full honors. Therefore, the Jews and their priests were happy to have Simon and his descendants as their leaders and high priests until a true prophet appears. Simon shall govern their country, have charge of the temple, and shall be their military commander. He shall be in charge of the military supplies, fortifications, and public works. The people must obey him in everything. All government contracts shall be drawn up in his name. He shall have the right to wear royal robes with a gold shoulder buckle. No one, priest or people, shall have the legal right to annul any of the decisions to alter or change any of Simon's orders to convey any assembly in the country without the permission or to wear royal robes with a gold shoulder buckle. Anyone who disobeys or disregards these regulations shall be subject to punishment. The people gave their unanimous approval to grant Simon the right to act in accordance and these regulations. Simon consented and agreed to be the supreme leader, high priest, commander of the armies, of the governors, of the Jews and the priests. Hope nothing goes wrong here. It was decided that the declaration shall be engraved on bronze tablets and set in the permanent place where the temple area, and that copy should be placed in the temple treasury, where Simon and his sons would have access to them. Chapter 15. Antiochus the seventh asks for Simon's support. From the Greek islands, Antiochus, son of King Demetrius, wrote the following letter to Simon the high priest and governor of the Jews, and to the whole nation. King Antiochus to Simon the high priest and governor, and to the nation of Jews, greetings. As you know, the kingdom of my ancestors has been seized by traitors. I have decided to reclaim it and restore its former greatness. I have raised a large army of mercenary troops and have fitted out warships. I plan to invade the land to attack those who have destroyed many of the towns and ruined the country. Now, therefore, I confirm all exemption from taxes and payments granted you by former kings. I authorize you to mint your own coins as legal currency in your own country. Jerusalem and the temple shall be free of taxation. All the weapons that you have manufactured and the defenses you have built and now occupy shall remain yours. In addition, all debts now owed to the royal treasury, or which may be the future fall due, are permanently canceled. As soon as I have regained control of my kingdom, I will confer upon you, your nation, and your temple such great honors that the glory of the country will be evident to the whole world. In the year 174, Antiochus invaded the land of his ancestors. Most of the soldiers came over to his side, so that there were very few left with Trypho. Trypho, pursued by Antiochus, fled to the coastal city Dor, realizing that he was in a desperate situation now that all of his troops had deserted him. Then Antiochus laid siege to Dor with 120,000 well-trained soldiers and 8,000 cavalry, with his ships joining the attack. He completely surrounded the town and brought such pressure on it that no one was able to enter or to leave. Rome supports the Jews. Meanwhile, Numerius and those with him arrived in Jerusalem from Rome with the following letter addressed to the various kings and countries. From Lucius, consul of the Romans, to King Ptolemy, greetings. A delegation from our friends and allies, the Jews, has come to us to renew the earlier treaty of friendship and alliance. They were sent by the high priest Simon and the people called Jews, and they have brought as a gift a gold shield weighing half a ton. So we have decided to write to various kings and countries, urging them not to harm the Jews, their towns, or their country in any way. They must not make war against the Jews or attack support to those who attack them. We have decided to accept the shield and grant them protection. Therefore, if any traitor escapes from Judea and seeks refuge in our land, hand him over to Simon, the high priest, so that he may punish them according to the law of the Jews. Lucius wrote the same letter to King Demetrius, to Attalus, Aristus, and Arises, and to all the following countries, and there is a list of several countries there. A copy of the letters was also sent to Simon, the high priest. Antiochus the seventh breaks with Simon. King Antiochus laid siege to Dor for the second time, keeping it under constant attack. He built siege platforms, and his blockade kept Trypho and his men from going in and out. Simon sent 2,000 well-trained soldiers to help Antiochus, as well as silver and gold, and a great deal of equipment. But Antiochus refused to accept them, canceled all the previous agreements that had been made with Simon, and became his enemy. Then Antiochus sent his trusted official Antiochus to negotiate with Simon. He told Simon, "You are occupying Joppa, Gezer, and the fort in Jerusalem, cities that belong to my kingdom. You have devastated those regions and have brought great trouble to the country. You have seized control of many places in my kingdom. Now you must hand back these cities that you have captured, and you must give me the tax money that you have taken from places that you have occupied outside the territory of Judea. If you are unwilling to do this, then you must pay me 30,000 pieces of silver and 30,000 additional pounds of silver to compensate me for the damages for the lost taxes. If you refuse to do either of these, we will go to war against you." When Abius came to Jerusalem and saw the splendor of Simon's court, the gold and the silver tableware in his banquet hall, and the rest of his display of great wealth, he was amazed. He delivered the king's message to Simon, and Simon answered, "We have never taken land away from other nations, or confiscated from other nations, or confiscated anything that belonged to other people. On the contrary, we have simply taken back property that we inherited from our ancestors." Oh, woo! Oh my goodness. I this is like this is the past that's going to happen in the future. That this is going to happen. That land was taken from people, from natives, from aboriginals. It's going to be returned back. On the contrary, we have simply taken back property that we inherited from our ancestors, lands that we have been was unjustly taken away from us by our enemies at one time or another. We are now only making use of this opportunity to recover our ancestral heritage. As for Joppa and Gezer, which you claim, we will give you 6,000 pounds of silver, in spite of the fact that the people of those cities have done great harm to our nation. Antiochus made no reply, but he returned to the king in a rage. When he told the king what Simon had said and reported on the splendor of Simon's court and all that he had seen, the king became violently angry. John's victory over Cendebeus. In the meantime, Trypho had boarded a ship and escaped to the town of Orthoacia. King Antiochus appointed Cendebeus as commander of the coastal area, provided him with infantry and cavalry, and gave him orders to move against Judea. He also ordered him to rebuild the town of Kitron and fortify its gates so that it could fight against the Jewish people, against the Jews. The king himself continued to pursue Trypho. Cendebeus then came to Jamnia and began to harass the Jews by invading Judea, capturing people and murdering them. He built Kitron and stationed some cavalry and infantry units there so that they could make attacks and patrol the roads of Judea as the king had ordered. Chapter 16. Simon's brother John left Gezer and went to report to his father what Cendebeus had done. Simon said to John and Judas, his two oldest sons, "All my father's family, my brothers, and I have fought Israel's battles all of our lives, and many times we've been successful in saving Israel. I am old now, but you, thanks to God, are in the prime of your life. You must take my place and that of my brother in fighting for our nation, and may God himself be with you." Then John raised an Israelite army of 20,000 trained soldiers and cavalry and marched out against Cendebeus. They spent the night in Modin, and then early the next morning they moved into the plain. There a large army of infantry and cavalry moved to meet them, but there was a river between the two armies. John and his army took up battle positions facing the enemy. But when John saw that his soldiers were afraid to cross the river, he crossed ahead of them, and his men saw him and followed. John divided his army and placed his cavalry in the middle of the infantry because there was a large number of enemy cavalry. The trumpet sounded the attack. The Cendebeus and his army were defeated, and many of them were killed. The rest ran back to their fortress in Kidron. Judas was wounded in the battle, but his brother John continued to pursue the enemy as far as Kidron, which Cendebeus had built. The escaping soldiers fled to the towers in the fields of Ashdod, and John set fire to the city. On that day, 2,000 enemy soldiers were killed, and John returned safely to Judea. The murder of Simon and his 2 sons. Wow. Simon, the high priest, had appointed Ptolemy, son of Ababus, commander for the plain of Jericho. Ptolemy was very rich because he was Simon's son-in-law, but he became too ambitious and wanted to take over the country. So he devised a plan to assassinate Simon and his sons. Simon, together with his sons Matthias and Judas, was visiting the towns in the area in order to take care of their needs. They arrived in Jericho in the month of Shabbat, the 7th month in the year 177. Ptolemy, still plotting the murder of Simon and his 2 sons, received them in the small fortress called Doc, which he built. He gave a great banquet for them, but he had been hidden within the fortress. When Simon and his sons were drunk, Ptolemy and his men came out of hiding and with swords in hand rushed into the banquet hall, where they killed Simon, his 2 sons, and some of the servants. With this horrible act of treachery, Ptolemy returned evil for good. Oh, wow. There are people in your life where you will do good for them, and they will return your good for evil. They will betray you. Oh, wow. This is so true to this day. To this day. So just know that's as old as the Bible. Then Ptolemy wrote a report of what he had done and sent it to the king. In the letter, he requested that troops be sent to help him and that the country and the cities be turned over to him. He wrote a letter to the army officers inviting them to join him and promising them silver, gold, and gifts. Then he sent some of his men to Gezer to kill John and others to take control of Jerusalem and the Temple Hill. But someone ran to Gezer ahead of Ptolemy's men and reported to John that his father and his brothers had been killed and that Ptolemy is sending his soldiers to kill him. John was horrified at the news, but because he had been warned in advance, he was able to capture and put to death the men who had been sent to kill him. Now the rest of what John did from that time, he succeeded his father, his wars, his deeds of courage, his rebuilding of the walls, and his other accomplishments are all written in the chronicles of the reign of the high priest. That is the end of First Maccabees. And as I've read this, it's like I feel like I need to I read it, I kind of got the essence of it, and one of these chapters, the chapter 15, was just a summary of all of Maccabees. But I still feel like I need to write down who's who and who succeeded who and who did what, who was good, who was bad, who broke their agreements with the Jews. That's how I feel. But that's interesting. A lot of the things, I feel like I read this for a reason. And part of that reason is because some of these battles that were won are going to be won again. And it's just a matter of God's timing of when that's going to happen. But we need to kind of use these things as models, as a template of that we can win battles. We can win the battles against the Gentile nations, in God's time and with God's help. but there will be some battles that are lost, especially when people start getting ahead of themselves. Like every time they got ahead of themselves and they thought they were better than what they were, that's when things started happening bad. I don't know. Like I said, I can read things and I've read it and I have thousands of books. I'm not kidding you. Thousands of books. And I can read them, and when I'm reading it, I get it. But I couldn't review it or tell somebody what I read. It's just the way it's always been with me. I love to read, but I don't remember what I read. I remember the essence of what I read, but not necessarily the details of what I read. Like I couldn't go back and explain to you what the story was, even though I read it. I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but I do. I definitely do. Definitely do. But still, there's a reason I'm supposed to be reading this. This came from, I was listening to Morial. He was saying we need to read the Bible in our own voices. And I thought about, I even looked up, how do you make your voice AI? Because it's so much easier. This is hard, hard, hard. I'm not kidding you. I mean, these people who are making these videos, hats off to them. This is not easy. This is a commitment. After I do this video right here, what is this? 36 minutes. 36-minute video. It'll take 3 hours to upload it. That's how long. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it takes forever to process it, for YouTube to upload it. Like, what in the world? So it's not. So it's like I'll sit here and I'll finish it once I finish coloring this, and then I'll upload it, and then it will sit there. I mean, it may take all night because I have to go somewhere later on, but it'll get uploaded eventually. Look at these people. They are so happy. They're so happy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. So Simon is entering the fort. They're like, we are winning. Thank the Lord we are winning. I mean, that's how I think we're going to feel. We are finally winning. We have been down for so long, punished for so long, wondering why are we in such bad shape? And it's getting ready to be over. I mean, that's kind of hard to accept, but it's true. It's here. We know it. We can feel it. It is coming to an end. All of our struggle, all the craziness we've been through, especially in the U.S. Some of yellow. It's like I have my eclipse glasses. Wear them. Colors this. I like black. No, on April the 8th. We've been waiting for April the 8th since 2017. Since we figured out there was going to be an eclipse on 2017, and then another eclipse on 2024 that was going to make an X across the United States. It seemed like a long way away. I remember that. I remember just like, oh yeah, okay, that'll eventually come, but who knows? That'll be a long time. But here we are, within a week of that. That's crazy. But it's true. We are here. We are here. We are here finally. Our time has come. I'm going to make it Streets of Gold. Gold. So I encourage everybody to, when you're reading the word, whether it's the Bible, the Apocrypha, the Gnostic Gospels, whatever it is, read it to say, what can we learn from it? It's happened. What can we learn from this? What can we learn from it? What does it mean to us today? And I think this book of First Maccabees was taken out because it shows that God's people can win. They won before, they'll win again. And there's nothing you can do about it. Because when God is on, with his people, there's nothing you can do about it. So we have finished at the 40-minute mark. We have finished First Maccabees, and how many chapters Second Maccabees has? We have to finish the story of the Maccabees, and it has Second Maccabees has 15 chapters. So with that, I'll end the scripture reading for the day, and until next time, peace.